Hey hikers, Lee with Trailside Fitness, and today we're going to discuss intensity for cardio. Are you doing the right type of intensity? Let's find out. Cardio for hiking is a little bit different than what you might traditionally do for just general fitness. And that's because our training intensity really should match our hiking intensity. So we're going to practice like we play. So what we do in the gym really should mimic what we're going to do out on the trail. Now your body has different energy systems, and the type of energy output we're giving is going to dictate which system we're using. Now for hikers, we just need the aerobic base system for the most part. 85 to 90% of our day is going to be spent in this aerobic base, and that means that's where the bulk of our training should be spent. So this means that the intensity or the effort you're putting into it should be one that you can maintain for hours at a time. So think about hiking itself. That's an activity we typically do for hours at a time without really needing to stop to let our cardio catch up with us in lieu of maybe some steep hills or ascents or something like that. But for the most part, we're able to just continue at a certain pace for a long period of time. Now that means we really want to train that specific system to make sure that we're optimizing our training time and then allowing those systems to adapt physiologically so that once we get out on the trail, we start to see those performances in real time. So an easy way to tell if you're working in that aerobic system, if you're not too familiar with different types of training modalities and systems, is just your breath. Are you able to maintain your breathing through your nose like 90% of the time? So for my clients, I'll have them focus on that nasal breathing aspect, which is going to do a couple things. One, it's going to act as a bit of a governor. It's going to kind of limit how heavy and intense you can go. And maybe initially when you start the workout, the first 10 to 15 minutes, it feels a little more challenging. Once those lungs open up, then it feels like it's a little bit easier and your output can kind of maintain with your nasal breathing. So that's one easy way to do it. If you're someone who's a little more into the numbers, zone 2 training is what we're looking for, and that's going to vary a little bit depending on your age, your fitness, your heart rate, all sorts of different things. There's a lot of calculators and stuff online you can use to help determine that, but zone 2 is really where you want to spend the bulk of that training time. Now aside from the nose breathing aspect, what we're looking to do is basically a conversational pace. We've hit on this a couple of times already. We're trying to find a pace that allows us to continue talking. And if talking gets harder and we're into shorter 1 or 2 word sentences, we're probably pushing the top of that zone 2 training and dipping into zone 3, which is going to be a different intensity level and it's going to work a different energy system. And as hikers, we do need to spend some time there. 15% of your training maybe at most would be spent on this higher intensity stuff. So this is where like some of the hill ascents and hill intervals come into play. We're going to target that system a little bit at that point. Maybe some of the workouts, depending on the type of workout you're in or what phase of your workout training you're in. But by and large, the bulk of your cardio training should be at a conversational pace, one where you can maintain nose breathing. So let's touch on this nasal breathing aspect because it is pretty important. So physiologically, there's a few things that happen when you take a nose breath. What you get with the nose breath is it activates a specific chain of events in your nasal passage. One of those events is a gas production called nitric oxide. And this gas basically helps to open up blood vessels, which makes the transportation of blood and oxygen to your muscles and the rest of your organs much more efficient, rather than having them a little more closed down and constricted. Now, nose breathing is great in this regard because it also helps to keep your gases in your body nice and even. You get an even exchange of oxygen and CO2 push out. Now, what happens with a lot of mouth breathing is that we tend to create more CO2 and we can't get enough oxygen in to keep those levels balanced. So now we're breathing harder trying to push out the CO2, but we're not getting enough oxygen in to replace that. That leads to us feeling out of breath, and it gets worse and worse and worse until eventually we need to stop or slow down. With nasal breathing, we keep those levels pretty even in the body. There's an even exchange of those gases. And that ability to maintain an even level of gas means we can continue to work for a long period of time. The muscles are getting the right amount of oxygen they need for this aerobic level of conditioning, or this zone 2. And the output that we're doing isn't one that's going to slow us down. We're not getting so out of breath. We need to stop, let our body recover, and then move into the next thing. So this is where the type of an intensity of training is going to directly benefit us while we're out hiking. There you have it, the intensity training for hikers. So if you guys have questions, there's a lot of other videos in my channel you can check out, different types of workouts you can do, machine type cardio, those sorts of things that are going to set you up perfectly for hiking. So have a look at those. And then with that, we'll say happy trails.